Yeah, you saw the warning, and we didn't expect to be back this quickly, but welcome back to PNR on this Thursday, May 30th. The late breaking news is Trump has been sentenced. Well, in this case, he's been found guilty on all 34 counts in the hush money trial. Now, to bring in part of the panel, unfortunately, we couldn't get Rick to come in. He's a little bit busy where he is out in London time, which usually means he might be asleep. But we're on top of stuff right here on the East Coast and on the West Coast with Thor Sandalwood on the West Coast, with Annabelle on the East Coast. Glad to have you both back in on this. Here's some of the basic information we have so far. As I said, guilty on all 34 counts. And when we were talking earlier today, I was trying to hint at the fact that he might be not guilty on some accounts, be guilty on some other accounts. The other thing to keep in mind is that they deliberated for 2 days, roughly less than 12 hours to come back with the verdict. Most of the talking heads are already saying this seemed a little fast. And I think we were all caught off guard too. Our predictions were saying sometime next week. Annabelle, you said Tuesday. So you obviously
Tuesday.
You got to be shocked.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I learned, I was in college during the OJ trial. When the OJ verdict came in, when it came in so quickly, they usually say that is a guilty charge. So I got a little bit hoodwinked on this. I said, oh, they came in really quick. It may not be a guilty charge. I'm a little surprised he's guilty on all charges in this case. Like you, Rob, I expected to have a little bit of variety on the charges. I didn't think they were going to go for all of them. So it looks like Robert De Niro was pretty persuasive out there on the street.
Hey, like I said in our episode earlier, I thought he came across well. And I know we had a really kind of a split verdict on that by looking in the cards and looking at the charts and everything like that. And that's going to happen sometimes. But Thor, when you look at where we're at right now, I mean, in your mind, with everything that you were laying out earlier within the charts, this had to surprise you that it came out this quickly.
I'm surprised it came out quickly, but also remember, and I want to remind everybody, the Mars had just crossed the eclipse degree back on May 26, which was only 4 days ago. And so I had been predicting around this time, so end of May, beginning of June, we were going to be seeing a lot of fast-paced events.
Yes, I do remember this, yes.
And this also has to tie in with the April 8th eclipse that I bring up, but really this has to do with Mars crossing the eclipse degree. I am amazed on how fast this development is taking place. I didn't expect that we were going to get a verdict so quick, all the counts. I guess for now, what we need to talk about is what are going to be the possible ramifications of this. We did talk about, and I talked about a little bit in our live stream earlier. And I can do a little bit more of an astrology breakdown in this live episode because we're probably going to be breaking down each point of view. I believe they said the sentencing is going to be in July. Is that correct?
That is correct. Here's what we got so far. Sentencing will be July 11th. Now, according to Reuters, which has come out within about the last 20 minutes, an appeal, should not be a surprise, will be imminent on the part of Trump's team. They're already hinting that the appeal process will center around the whole situation with Stormy Daniels. So basically, we'll put Stormy Daniels more to the test in saying that maybe she wasn't completely forthright in her testimony. It will play out more and more this way. With each appeal process, it delays the inevitability. Meaning that if he were to take this, let's say he appeals this through circuit court all the way to the Supreme Court, there's a chance it could take years before we even get a verdict, which means his impending presidency candidacy for 45 now puts in this case. There's not going to be anything that could stand in his way unless, and this may be something we jump into, what could happen at the Republican National Convention? Will he have the complete support of his party now knowing this? It's another curveball to throw into the whole equation.
Absolutely. What I was going to say is I know how people had brought up the potential of running for president if somebody has a felony. Wasn't there some sort of gray area with that where he could be possibly removed from some ballots?
Here's the interesting thing that I've dug up so far. According to the Constitution, there's only 3 things you have to be a candidate for president. You must be over the age of 35 years of age. You must be born in the United States, and you must have lived here for 14 consecutive years while being a resident at this moment. There is no area in there that says if you're a convicted felon, you can't run. Although in certain states, if you're a convicted felon, you can't vote. So there's kind of an interesting thing going on here. The bigger question is going to be, will this black eye affect us? And we're going to dive into that, obviously, over the next several minutes when we take a look into the cards and look into the side of your charts. And I'll have some polling information that'll hopefully be found very interesting as we take a closer look. Annabelle, where are we going to start with the cards?
So, I think, do we start with how is the appeal going to go? If the appeal is going to...
You know what? The appeal is probably the first part of this. Even though it may take... Well, that's what I'm saying. Even though it may take years, but maybe you're going to see something that says maybe it won't. Again, the appeal process could take a long time because, again, if you're going from level to level of court, it depends on what is going to happen and how fast will the appeals process is. Now, most of the time, they're already saying that if he files the appeal, there's almost no chance they can get him into court before Election Day.
Right. And I think we're going to have some issues with the appeal. Now, the emperor usually is a ruler in tarot, but in this case, it potentially could be a judge, someone who's, kind of bottlenecking that appeal process. It does feel very much like that. The legal system, I am going to say, with this Page of Cups in reverse, is very much a volatile, emotional situation that is going to try and stop an appeal process. I'm going to be honest, it feels very much like the court system is going to say, nope, we got our answer. We got a conviction. We're not doing anything from here on out. I know that's not how appeals work, but I have a feeling that the appeal process is going to become so cumbersome and difficult that we're really not going to get anywhere right away. They're basically going to tell him, take your medicine and shut your mouth. So that's our Hangman in reverse and the Knight of Swords here. That star card, when it goes into reverse too, throws us either really, really far in the future or into a negative outcome in the future. So not looking so good. Definitely division here with the Two of Pentacles in reverse underneath. And I think this is our culture and the United States culture, what's happening right now. It's being torn asunder, in my opinion.
So when it comes to the sentencing date of July 11th, when you look into the cards, do you think that it will, even if he appeals, I mean, let's throw a bunch of monkey wrenches in this. It sounds like you're saying July 11th, probably not going to get sentencing. And with the appeals this is where it could get a little chaotic and maybe not drag on as long as you're saying. And maybe they're saying, nope, we've got our decision. We'll try to process this as quickly as possible, so to speak.
I just pulled on the sentencing now. King of Swords in reverse, King of Pentacles in the upright, Sun in reverse, the Hermit in reverse, Six of Cups in reverse is just not a good scene. This Six of Wands, the underlying energy here, I think they're going to push forward and see if they can make this stick. I think they're going to push forward for that conviction. Up here, you're taking your medicine. That Queen of Swords, she's doling out medicine. She's spanking people left and right. This is no hope for the past. No hope for the past. We are really going to push forward. King of Swords too, he's going to spank somebody. And the King of Pentacles goes as slow as possible. He is not going to go very quickly on this. So again, I do think when we get to that, I think they're going to want to talk about the sentencing and kind of deliver the sentencing, even if they're not delivering the sentencing officially. I think, he is convicted in the court of public opinion right now. That's a tough thing to beat when you're trying to run for re-election.
Good point. Well, in this case, trying to recapture the office that you once owned. Thor, you have mentioned this many, many times before, and I want to bring it out again because I think it is important as we talk about what's happened with the eclipse and sort of the chaos that has been ensuing. As you said, the chaos is affecting so many different elements of the universe and in people. So in a sense, the instability that is going on, now play that into the world of 45. Explain.
Absolutely. I'm going to pull up the chart for us here in a moment here. Let me go ahead and pull that up. What I want to do, and I want to describe this to everybody because we're really doing a deep dive on this episode today with this latest breaking news of Donald Trump verdict. He's been declared what, guilty on how many counts was it? 30,
all 34.
34 counts, guilty on all counts. And there's the possibility of, people are wondering if there's going to be jail time. So let me go break down for all of you that are new to my channel, Psychic News Report. Let me break down to you kind of the prelude astrologically of what led us up to this point. So I'm going to walk us through for a minute or two here, and then we'll talk about, and we can hand it off to Annabelle, what are going to be the possible ramifications to this maybe in July. So let's go ahead and take a look. First of all, I'm going to walk us up to this point that we are as of May 30th. So let me go walk us up to that point, because there's several astrological transits that took place. Let me bring up the chart for everybody. And here's the chart. We got 45's chart. Right here. Let me make sure it's the correct one. Okay. So one of the things I want to bring up is April 8th was the starting event for all of this. So April 8th, that was the eclipse in Pisces. Remember, this eclipse was visible in North America. Okay, that makes it extra potent. So this is influencing when we're thinking about like the USA elections, US elections, okay, which are coming up in November. There's also going to be more eclipses, okay, in September and October. There's going to be another pair. But I'm talking about right now, May, okay? It was visible in the United States. That's why I see a lot of instability happening in the USA from now to the lead up till we get to November here with the election. Now that started at the April 8th eclipse. Now let me clean up the chart for a moment, because I'm walking us through this. There was several astrological events. Then we had Mars enter the sign of Pisces. And remember, Rahu's there too. So transiting Rahu's in the sign of Pisces till May of 2025. And what Mars did was, there's this portal that was opened up when the eclipse happened on April 8th. Okay, imagine like a portal, with an energy portal was opened up right here. Mars crossed that eclipse degree on May 26th, just 4 days ago. Okay. What happens is when you have an eclipse and then you have Mars cross the eclipse degree, this is a trigger for events. Okay, so whenever you have an eclipse, the eclipse is kind of like an active degree in the chart, and you want to look and see if Mars is going to cross either across the eclipse degree directly, or can be even an opposition to that degree. So say in the sign of Virgo. So we just had that crossing of the eclipse degree 4 days ago. I am expecting out of this, and I just want to get everyone prepared. There's going to be a lot of turmoil in these elections. This right now, we're introducing a lot of turmoil into the system, and this could lead to a lot of events coming up in the near future. I'm going to also do a breakdown. Maybe we'll hand it off to Annabelle right now. But we're going to talk about what could we see as a result of this. But I want you to know the eclipse is directly the karmic cause of this event right now, and the Mars crossing the eclipse degree.
Annabelle, before you take it, Thor, when you were talking about that porthole, it almost seems like, from a layman's outsider's perspective, like we're kind of falling into this black hole, and as we continue to fall, the worse it's going to get.
Absolutely. I think that things are still getting worse. Remember when the eclipse happened on April 8th, I talk about this 90-day window of time.
Right.
So we're talking about from April to July. We have this 3-month window of time where the energies are very intense. I also expect, and this is going to be something else that's kind of a little bit outside, but when we think about internationally, everything is kind of connected. Mm-hmm. I feel like we have the conflicts happening in the Middle East right now.
Right.
We have the conflicts happening in Eastern Europe. Mm-hmm. This is all tied together when we're talking about this general turmoil. There's a lot of people that are saying that the US is kind of this empire in a state of slow collapse. And so I want you to realize that a lot of these themes are taking place. We've never had a president be convicted of a felony, right? I mean, I think Nixon, and I think we lost Rob there.
Oh, okay. He's back. I'll get him back in.
Rob.
Sorry, I didn't know it was my end. I apologize.
I was going to say, we've never had a president convicted of a felony, from what I understand. I mean, even with Nixon, with the Watergates, he just resigned, right? With the Watergate
Correct.
scandal and
It's
all those
exactly what
things.
happened in 74.
So this is absolutely breaking news. This is going to have devastating consequences for the upcoming elections. I do not see how this situation is going to be fully sorted out by the time of elections. Annabelle and myself, we did videos on, we're thinking that there's going to be a lot of chaos leading up to the elections. This could be part of it, because what we're going to be looking at is how are the Trump supporters going to be reacting to this? How are all these different groups that are operating right now going to be acting to all of this? Because we know from the Trump side, they might be saying this is persecution. This is all political. So this is getting into some really murky territory with all of these things.
And we're going to get into that part that you just mentioned before we're done today, because that is a very interesting point that we'll dive into, and I'll bring out some of the things that he said as he left the courtroom today that kind of plays into that. Annabelle, thank you for allowing me to throw that to Thor. Where are you going?
Sure thing. I mean, we're hustling here. Thor, I have a question. The 3rd of June, we're having a big conjunction that day, are we not?
I'll have to look on the chart for a moment. If you want to take over, I'll look and see the 3rd of June. I don't remember off the top of my head, but let me take a look and see if there's a conjunction that day.
To be sure, I am not an astrologer, but I did see something on there was something that flashed up on my screen about all the planets will be aligning on the 3rd. And it was something that I was going to ask you about privately, but now I'm asking you about it publicly.
Yeah,
so,
it also could be Western astrology. So let me take a look.
It was Western astrology.
Okay.
So I while you guys were chatting, I did a little bit of remote viewing, and what I did see is that there's a lot of shuffling of papers right now. I know this sounds a little deep state. I know a lot of people don't work in paper. A lot of places are paperless, but there's something about destroying some papers, getting rid of some things, changing some things around, making sure that they're not done. Now, I don't know if that is the appeals process, but there's a lot of shuffling of papers going on right now. It's a bit chaotic. I'm going to bring up my card view, and I'm going to tap into how 45 is feeling right now and his legal team. We're going to bring them up.
And I can tell you that he was not looking great. And obviously, when you've been convicted of 34 things, you're not going to look great coming out of the courtroom for sure. And there's more to that when we will get into it.
So if this is the general milieu, there's almost a sense of walking away here. We do have that 8 of Cups at the top and kind of letting the chips fall where they may, which is a very weird response. I would intellectually expect an appeal. But this almost looks like if we appeal, we're not going to get anywhere with this. We've got to cut our losses and run and just bring to light the terrible handling of this case, in the opinion of the team 45, Team Trump. I think that is a very interesting approach. What would be the plan if they did say something very reckless? This fool in reverse is very, very reckless, saying just let's go, let's not do this. What's the plan? The plan is to stand down just a bit, unpartner from the. Oh, this is very, very interesting in terms of cards. This is almost a suggestion that he's just going to divest himself from the whole situation. Maybe stand down from the whole election process. This King of Wands is giving up, is just saying, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to walk away with those lovers in reverse and cut and run. This will give me the moment where I shine and perhaps stops the process of what they're doing here. This is alarming as well, because this is a very radical, unexpected approach. So if this is the conversation, it's a very, if he's in the back of that, you said Ford Bronco before, if he's in the back of the Ford Bronco, I think he's telling his attorneys, cut this. We're not going to do it. I'm not going to give in to them. I'm not going to play this game. It's a tilted game anyway. So this is a very, very unexpected response on my side.
It is unexpected on another level, because if you were to play it that way and just say, cut it, cut it, cut it, that means no appeal, go to sentencing. You could be sentenced to jail. And that, in essence, makes it almost impossible, although you could still be on the ballot in jail. But that would throw it into even more chaotic of a situation where it's like, yeah, okay, so one of the major party candidates is in jail. And the thing about it is, just taking it on this level, 45's ego. Is his ego going to want to go to a place where he's had hotels, jets, golf courses, you name it? He has lived lifestyles of the rich and famous. With that being said, I just don't see logically where those cards play into his personality and in any way, shape, or form make any logical sense, because he's been coming across with the idea of delay, delay, delay. The whole point of this was he didn't want to have any of this happening until after the election.
Yeah, to be sure, I think we're in a very, very emotionally and intellectually chaotic moment. Stepping into that car, there's a lot of raised voices. One of the things when you do remote viewing, if there's a lot of chaos going on over at concerts, amusement parks, that kind of thing, military installations are often, secret military installations are often parked underneath amusement parks and those kinds of things to interfere with the psychic spying that can be done. There's a lot of chaos going on in that car. I'm tapping into the chaos. It's not interfering with what I'm getting, but I'm getting a kind of cut it. We're going to go in a different direction on this one, which is going to be very, very interesting. I know Trump, love him or hate him, he does some strange moves, and I'm getting a very strange move here. Now, I did think that when Thor did his reading earlier on our live at 1:15 New York time, I did think that there was something about appealing going on there. I did get a flash of that, and doing a little bit of time, locking up for a little bit of time. So I think it's very curious that we're getting kind of this resignation now. And it's not a resignation. I want to be sure that I'm not saying that.
And I understand exactly where you're going with that, but that's why I say these two things one does not play with the other and can make sense for a path for 45 to continue with his quest to get back to DC.
So my question is, are we looking for the powder keg moment? Are we looking for the JC moment where, we vilify him to the point where everyone rallies behind him or more people rally behind him? Maybe that's what we're getting.
Well, let's go back to what Thor was saying before. To defend your point from before, when he came out of the courtroom, he mentioned the term rigged at least 5 times. He tried to play the martyr card at that point. And that, to me, whether you love him or hate him, that seems to be the only strategy he's going to play at this point. He wants to come across as, I'm the victim here, not anybody else but me.
And this spread, if we're looking for that victim narrative, that victim approach, we've got it right here. I'm looking at it in the cards. This is, I am not going to be held down. I'm not going to let this affect me, but I am cast out from your system. Your system has abandoned me and has cast me out. I am done fighting this on your terms. Here, I'm going to come up with better solutions. I'll do my time. I will shut my mouth and be quiet, but I am going to tell you how the system is failed. So very, very curious. Down here, he is splitting from the status quo. And I mean politics with capital letters in concrete, carved in stone. He is splitting with politics. Now, does that mean he's not going to be a leader anymore? I think he's splitting from the notion of our system that is in place now. So I'm saying some hot things right now, guys. So don't shoot the messenger, but I'm seeing
not
some
shooting the
crazy
messenger,
stuff
but
here.
there's a couple of ways to take this. Let me start with this. As you're saying, if he's getting away from politics, are you suggesting that he will step away from the Republican Party?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think if the Republican Party does not support him, I think he's going to take a large step back.
With that, I'll take it one step further. Let's say he takes that step back. Let's play it out. He steps away from the Republican Party. Does he still try to do a candidacy as an independent? And with that, the triple cut means we're going to get some cards on this.
Also, I have another some more things in the chart after we're done with Annabelle here.
I appreciate that, Thor.
You can go right ahead, Thor, because I think I've got a cool answer here. So why don't you head to the chart just for a sec?
Okay. So you did ask me about June 3rd. There are some important conjunctions happening that day on and I haven't done the June predictions yet on my channel. So on June 3rd, that we got Sun Venus conjunction in the sign of Taurus, and we got Mercury Jupiter conjunction in the sign of Taurus. There's two conjunctions happening that day. We can look at it in Donald Trump's chart, but I'm also going to talk about for a moment here, and let me break this down for a few minutes. The astrological period. You brought up this idea of possibly just resigning from the race altogether. That's a possibility based on the astrology chart. So let me pull that up for everybody. And Rob, did you have something you wanted to add?
Not at the moment. I'm going to wait till you're done on this because all I'm going to say is you're reading the chart. You both realize what you're putting out there sort of goes against who he is personally, and it goes against everything philosophically. So I'm curious to see why you're seeing this in the astrological chart.
One of the things I want to point out about the Mars, remember I talked about the eclipse here and Mars first. Let me bring that up for a moment. It's in the
and for those
house.
who don't know, the eclipse, which has had this 90-day effect of just total chaos, and we've seen it in many different levels across the globe.
It's in the 8th house of Donald Trump's chart, which is disgrace, shock. It can be literally going down in disgrace. Okay. It doesn't necessarily mean when we talk about somebody going down in disgrace, this could be, either the person's, guilty or not guilty. Sometimes there's forces beyond yourself that can, like, for example, smear campaigns and things like that, that could make somebody go down in disgrace. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now 8th house just says disgrace, but let me point out the conjunctions we have on June 3rd that are coming up. So June 3rd, that's only a week away. A lot of people are bringing up this June 6th date too. I've been hearing that a lot, seeing that a lot on X. But June 3rd, we got Sun Venus. Okay, we got Sun Venus here. And let me go ahead and draw that. And then we got Mercury. We got Mercury and Jupiter all in the 10th house. Look at that. The 10th house is all about public visibility. It's all about, and we got Rahu. I mean, this is like, okay, let's go ahead. Now,
there's a party going on right there.
There's a definite party of planets. I think what's going on there with the 10th house, all these planets amplifying. One thing I do want to point out is that Mercury and Venus are going to be combust because they're going to be very close to the sun. So it's actually kind of not that great to have all these planets in the 10th house. The 10th house does represent things like career. It represents public visibility. So I think with this interpretation, definitely he's taking over the news cycle for the next couple of weeks here. and it's not necessarily a good thing because of sun. We got the Venus, which is the 10th lord, combust. So it's almost like a negative kind of light that's being casted on Donald Trump. The other thing I want to bring up, because we talked about this potential of resigning, I kind of see two paths here. There's a potential he might just resign from the race. It's absolutely in there. There's also the other potential that he actually could see a few days. I don't know. There could be some potential jail time. I know this is a shocker and people might not want to believe it, but it does. I mean, it's shocking that he's guilty of all these counts. Okay. We keep on getting shock after shock with this stuff. And I think that we need to prepare ourselves that we could see the first president doing some jail time potentially here. Now he's in a Venus period. Let me bring this up. Astrologically, he's in a Venus period, which for Donald Trump, that's going to be from December 2022 to August of 2025. I did talk about this on the live stream we did earlier, but I want to bring this up to any new viewers. This period where Venus, so he's in this Venus period, he's smack dab in the middle of it. Venus is in the 12th house. I already talked about the 12th house can represent things like prison, incarceration, okay, solitude. It can represent house arrest, but this is what's interesting. And also we got to keep in mind Saturn's here. And let me bring that up. Let me talk about that for a moment. Now, the 12th house can also represent resignations and retirement. Okay, just giving up. I surrender, whatever. I guess this is too much. I just give up on it all. Okay. What if there's a plea deal? Maybe there's a plea deal and he just says, okay, he's going to be out of politics. You know, I'm just speculating here, everybody, entertainment purposes only. But there could be some sort of, what if there's some sort of deal made last minute? What if there's some sort of, okay. But this definitely could represent retirement, prison. Okay. But Saturn's there too. Saturn is showing that this whole situation, it rules the 6th house. The 6th house is short jail term stays. Okay. So because whenever you're going through a Venus in Trump's chart, Venus is next to Saturn. So Saturn's is influencing the situation as well. So I want everyone to be aware of that. Now, this could be a jail stay because Saturn's involved. All the evil houses that we talk about in astrology are all involved. These are really bad omens. Okay. The 6th lord is involved. Saturn's involved. Venus is in the 12th house. That's the other evil house. And then we had the eclipse that happened in the 8th house. These are all very bad omens for Donald Trump. The other thing I want to bring up is Saturn represents the establishment, the system. It could be one of those situations, no matter how hard Donald Trump's ego is in all of this, no matter how hard, I mean, he just wants to make it happen, but he's up against a rock, okay, a brick wall. And there's a point where there's only so much power someone can have.
Well, I want to, Annabelle, before I throw it back to you, because you talked about that timeline again, Thor, which is very important, as you said, starting in August of 22, December of 2025.
Yes.
With that being said, knowing full well, if he goes to the appeals process, it's very possible the appeals process could take him to December of 2025. Just another possible take on the angles that maybe could play into the influence of where Saturn and everybody's aligning.
Absolutely. So this is what I feel with the Saturn thing. I think that the powers that be, yes, could he maybe try to forestall it with the appeals process and things like that? Yes, but with the planetary alignments I see with Saturn suppressing Venus in Trump's chart, and that's the one that rules leadership in his chart. Venus rules the 10th house for Leo ascendant.
Okay.
The thing I want to point out is I do believe that the powers that be, the opposition, who's ever in opposition to Trump, they are using this as this is them trying to make the final checkmate move on him. Okay, for the election. So
Right.
I feel like this, if he somehow can delay it past the election, then I think it's going to be a moot point after that. It probably won't matter at that point. But I think this is them trying to do the chess move of fully checkmating him so he just drops out. And I think that's what they're trying to do. And, there's potential. We're going to have to do more readings on this, but the Republicans may have to even drop him as a candidate. I just don't see, if he's tied up in too many of these things, he's got a felony. I don't know how it's going to move forward from this point on.
That is one place we'll go before we're done, and we'll discuss the Republican National Convention. And it's interesting, the chess terminology. I guess the best way to describe it right now is, here he is, he's lost his queen, and he's trying to mount an offense. But in chess, you lose your queen, you automatically are on defense, which is a difficult place to be in this situation. Annabelle, you were putting up more cards, so let's go back to you where we were before.
So one of the things that I want to see is how the base support is going to respond to this. So I want to know, I mean, I truly feel this was election day. This really was election day, 0.5.
Right.
They really were trying to get that, popular vote right now. This is, now all the campaigning is going to be, see, we told you so. See, we told you so. Criminal. So I want to see how this is going to affect the masses that do support 45.
As you're dealing the cards, I'll bring up polling as far as the sport goes. Over the last 12 polls that have come out this month, he's polling at about 42% of the vote, which is about 2% ahead of Biden, with JFK Jr. polling at about 10%. The other three candidates, Stein, West, and the recent Libertarian candidate, Chase Oliver, taking about 3% of the vote.
So we are going to see the popular support behind Trump. They're extremely upset, obviously, with this 9 of Cups in reverse, but formulating plans. So, we talked earlier about numerology and tarot. When we have Ace, it's getting the idea. 2, we're getting together with an architect to work on it. 3, we bring our contractors in. And 4, we get to building that. So when we have this 4 in reverse, the 4 of Swords, when it's upright, it's rest, recovery, trying to make things better for yourself, preparing for that next step. But it's in reverse here. We're tired of sleeping. We're getting up, and we're going to start to come up with some creative ideas. What is that creative idea? We have the 8 of Cups here. We're leaving a good thing and going off to something that may be a little bit challenging. This feels a little bit like The Patriot. And if you saw the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Feels a little patriot-ish here. So, I tell people when they get the 8 of Cups in a reading, if it's a romantic reading, I tell them, well, you're leaving a relationship that's meh for something that may be really great, but it's going to be a long haul to get there. So it may be a dissatisfying relationship. This is a dissatisfying relationship. This is not listening to the people, and they are moving on. So I do think we're going to see that. The 5 of Swords, when it's in reverse, the fight is not done. These are true patriots that are going to stand up, and they do see this for what it is, and they're willing to step outside of the organized processes, the organized systems, to make that happen. Everybody's talking about a different process here. Now, I know our Constitution is an amazing document. I know everything in there is what this country was built on, but there are people that are going to fight to make things a little bit different. I think with that Summer of Rage that Thor and I talked about before, I think we're going to see a lot of this going on.
Well, see, it's funny because you bring that up. That's what has me disconcerted on the outside, is you guys both have looked at this and you talk about the rage and the chaos, and you talk about, as you say, the patriot, but some people may interpret that into more like civil unrest.
Absolutely.
And that's where I get concerned.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, if we're looking at the Trump at 45 supporters here, this is the view that they have. So, this is absolutely the view they have. They would see themselves as patriots, much like some of the other organizations, political organizations would always see themselves as the patriot part. This is them seeing themselves as patriot. And to be sure, everybody, I'm trying to stay impartial on this one. I'm trying to give it a clean read. So, Thor, you were saying, did you have a question?
So I wanted to bring up, I can bring up the chart again for a moment. We talked about this in Are the Elections Going to Be Disrupted? We made a featurette on Psychic News Report. Let me bring this up for everybody. The Saturn retrograde is approaching. Okay. And everything is like lockstep. It's almost like we're going through this cosmic dance right now. Let me pull up the chart again. This happens to be Trump's chart. Let me clean it up, but it doesn't really matter. This Saturn retrograde is going to be affecting all the charts. Okay. One of the things I want to point out is, and let me grab my stylus, transiting Saturn right now, it's in the sign of Aquarius, and it's been there since January of 2023. Okay. It's going to be going retrograde in June. So June next month, 2024, to November, right after the election. I think November 11th is when this is actually going to stop going retrograde.
Which would be after the election, correct?
Exactly. So between June and November, Saturn's going to be retrograde. Always remember that what Saturn represents is law and order. That is the number one thing that Saturn represents. Whenever we have a planet going retrograde, what we have is the planet weakens. So I want everyone to just be aware of that. The planet weakens, and so there's a slowdown, or there's a problem with the issues of law and order. Saturn also represents things like justice. Okay, so law and order, justice, all those things are basically being routed right now. Okay, so now I'm not saying Trump's guilty or not guilty. I'm just saying that if we have a general sense of law and order in the country, especially, let me bring that up one more time. I talked about in several of my other readings, and I talked about quite a bit with Annabelle, was the USA in particular is in a very kind of tragic time right now. In the USA chart, the moon is in the seventh, or in the house of Aquarius. Okay, in the USA chart, Saturn's going over the moon, transiting Saturn, which is Sati Sati. I've been predicting ever since I knew that Saturn was going over the USA moon in the astrology chart. I knew that this year was going to be one of the most intense, difficult years. And I feel like I'm going to make some predictions right now. There's going to be some tragic situations coming up between now and November. Okay. Because this is very bad omens for the country. This is very bad omens for the country. This is very bad omens for, even when we think of things like people's sense of justice, people's sense of fairness. You know, these are all subjective things. How are the people feeling? How is the citizenry feeling about, is this justice, or does this look like and we can debate this all day long. Do people think this is a political witch hunt? Or do people think that this is justice that's being exacted? You know, they just came out with this independent movie, in the last couple of months, called The Civil War. Are we in this really polarized, and art reflects the time. A lot of times art will reflect the culture.
Well,
we're in this extremely polarizing time.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. I think we've reached a point where we have now, let's say it this way, where 12 years ago, let's say this is where the political scheme was left and right. Now, with each year, with each passing event, with each thing that has happened, this is what's happened. Whether we want to admit it or not, just by looking at what's going on in the world and look at what's happening. Now, forgive me for, as we say, it's for entertainment, and we look at cards, and I'm the novice here. I'm not the one who's an astrologer or a card reader. All I'm presenting to you is, as you look at things and you look at social media, there's another great example. Look how divided we are on the media. We don't know what to think sometimes because everything is so slanted. And the other thing is, I lived in a society where at one point I could have an opinion, have a conversation, and maybe learn something. Can you really have that conversation now? Just something to think about here, as the civil unrest is a little alarming on so many levels. And Thor, I hope you're wrong, of course, but I can understand why, based on what you're seeing in the stars and in the planetary alignment, why this is very disconcerting and why it has to be sort of in the back of your head to say, if things really spin down that hole that you talked about earlier, this really could put us so far down that 2025 is going to be like, how do we dig out of 2024?
I feel like that's where we're heading right now. And I do want to kind of clarify with everybody, when I talk about civil unrest, there's a lot of different levels to what people view as civil unrest. For example, we had the college protests recently, the university protests over what's going on in the Middle East right now.
Right.
Could it be larger scale protests, and police show up to these protests and we consider that civil unrest? I don't want people to be alarmed and think it's all out Mad Max.
No, exactly. And I'm glad you're bringing up that point.
Yeah. So I do want to clarify that with everybody. It just represents social unrest, a point of view. We could see thousands of people out in the streets, different cities. Okay. We could see kind of large marches. I feel like this year we are going to see the largest probably protests that we've ever seen. I think we're going to see, usually things that we see in developing countries, I think that's coming to the USA this year. We're going to see the tens of thousands of people out in the streets, and there's going to be a lot of hell to pay. I mean, there's so many different factors to this, along with political, just like if we look at, for example, the fall of Rome, okay, there's a lot of factors. Political instability usually goes along with financial instability. And then international foreign policy instability. We could be seeing kind of like all these dominoes. Could we be hitting a vortex of these dominoes, of this black hole entering the event horizon here. That's yet to be seen, but we're looking like we're seeing the beginning dominoes here.
And it'll be interesting to see how the dominoes fall, because it's like the dominoes could really go either way. And we've been seeing that even with this year, when you sit there and say, okay, the economy, it could tilt, but yet Wall Street continues to be healthy. So in other words, Wall Street's keeping the economy at bay from us potentially being worse than what we are. But yet when we go to the stores, it's costing a little bit more out of our wallets. We're not being able to keep ends meeting and staying ahead of the bills when everything else just kind of tick, 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 tick keeps going up.
Well, that's the thing. I think that the economy it's kind of a lopsided economy. I mean, see, the thing about it is when we see the headlines that the economy is doing well, I think they said the stock market hit, what was it, 40,000 or something?
Yeah, it did
a week or two ago.
Yep.
It broke some record last 2 weeks ago.
It did.
But who is that really affecting? Is that affecting 90% plus of Americans, or is that affecting the top 10% or the top 5% that have all their money tied up in investments? Not your average Joe that's working a blue collar job, trying to get by.
Agreed. But I'll throw I'll throw this one monkey wrench there. What if the Dow was around 25,000? Now all of a sudden,
there's a lot of talk, and this is a whole nother video. There's a lot of talk right now that we could be entering a period of stagflation, which is we're going to start seeing the economic bubble pop at the same time there's high inflation. So we're entering some. I mean, this could be somewhat of a repeat of the 70s.
Right.
I think stagflation occurred during Carter.
Right.
But I think this is a very unique situation. I think we're going to encounter situations we've never seen before.
And I'll tie it all back to your timeline to December 2025. Keep that in the back of your mind. Thor's been bringing out that point many times whenever he can. Annabelle, I know you have not been able to chime in on this, so please.
That's okay. I'm loving everything you guys are saying. So I did pull some cards to see if we are in fact going to have an election. Right now, it looks like no. I'm gonna go out and to be sure, when we read tarot, when we do psychic readings, it really is based on the energies that are at hand. So there's always free will. There's always something that we can kind of shift and move into a different direction. So this looks like absolutely not. There is not. We are going to run from that election process. The populace will be on the outs. They will not be able to have an offer, an opportunity to make some choices there, and they're going to lock things down. Not in the sense of what we saw in 2021, 22, but they're going to lock things down. There's going to be a reason, and I saw this coming a while ago, that they were going to attempt to stop this election and try and just plug someone else in for a little bit. If it's the extended dance remix of 46's, term, we might see that, but it looks like we're going to not really have that choice. Up here, people are going to be unhappy about it, though. I do want to say that we are not going to go gently into that good night on both sides of the aisle. I think everyone wants to vote. I think the people that are supporting 46, they want that confirmation. They want that do-over of the 2020 election, because they want to drive home the point that Joe Biden did get the most votes ever in any election anywhere. They want to put that on display. So, we're really getting into some dangerous waters here. I think it is going to be volatile, but I think things are going to be locked up. Mark my words, that fence is going to go back up around Washington, D.C. any day now.
Wow. And again, from an outsider's perspective, not having the abilities that you have, I can't see not having an election. I could spin it a different way on the level of, and it's something we've brought up before, could Biden somehow not be the candidate? Could 46 step out of the way, maybe due to a health issue or something like that? If you look on some betting lines overseas, they still list Michelle Obama with odds, and they still list Gavin Newsom with odds, interestingly enough.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is if we have between now and the election, we already have this drama going on with Trump. That's one issue. Okay. We
Right.
could have him either drop out of the race or end up in some seriously troubling situation. I mean, worst case scenario, he's in jail. Okay.
And he's the president.
Yeah, I guess we'll be setting up the Oval Office in the jail cell. So I don't know how they're going to set that up, but that would be very interesting.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say is, if there is a national emergency, and there's been a lot of psychics, a lot of astrologers feeling like this year is a black swan type of year. If we have some sort of emergency pop up over the next few months here, all bets could be off. Okay, if we go into emergency mode, the election, this is worst case scenario. Black swan event, election being called off. Maybe this is just a side issue, Trump dropping off. Like I said before, Saturn's going over the moon in the USA chart. Those are really bad omens. The eclipse, the path of totality, it came over the United States. That's a very clear omen. They knew this stuff since ancient times. Whenever the path of the eclipse went over your nation, it was not seen as a good thing. I know there's a lot of new age kind of astrologers out there that say it's a great time for manifesting, but that's not what the ancients said. The ancients said, get out of Dodge if you saw the eclipse, that it was a bad omen.
But
just like Apocalypto.
Thor, it's very interesting because it is two chains of thought. Because one thing I'm learning at this day and age in 2024, manifestation and positivity is what's going to get you forward. But you're saying in ancient times, this is more like, hey, smoke them if you got them, put your head between your legs and kiss your butt goodbye. So
this was this was more of a, when you saw the eclipse, it was like, okay, let's get out of here. Like, this is not a good omen. Like I said, if you ever seen the movie Apocalypto, where at the very end of the movie, they see the eclipse, and the movie is forestalling that as a bad omen, that there's, that these colonizers are arriving essentially. And that's the omen, there's this eclipse that happens.
Right.
So it's seen as a bad thing. In ancient India, it was seen as a bad thing as well. So, I know there's a lot of people that think of it as a positive thing, but in light of all the events that are happening, I never thought I would be seeing, I've been seeing in the news for the last year that Trump's had all these lawsuits, and I haven't really been taking it that seriously, but we got to take this serious. I mean,
that I will give you credit on, because you're at least realizing, for a lot of people, today is a wake-up call. For some people, it's a massive wake-up call.
Absolutely.
Where we go from here, we give you some ideas, and some of them may seem a little out there, but that's the interesting part of this world. When you bring in the world of astrology and the world of tarot reading, put it together, and you get a very interesting arc. And you don't have to agree with it, but it is another spin on the world, and it's interesting to take a look at it for sure.
Absolutely. One of the things, Thor is psychic as well. One of the things, we can sense pressure building, and I'm sensing a lot of pressure building in the country. I just think that we are going to have lots of people that are really, really pissed off, and I can't put it any other way.
I'll leave with one last thing since you talk about pressure. The one thing that I keep hearing from a lot of people, and you may have heard this from even some celebrities, that if 45 were reelected, they'd leave the country. Now, we heard this once before, and it didn't happen. But taking into consideration the powder keg that you're talking about and the pressures and all this stuff, now it doesn't seem so crazy. That if that scenario were to play out, how many people would decide, I want out? Maybe the out factor that we talked about here, maybe it's not 45. Maybe it is the populace. And maybe I'm starting to get some vibes off of the two of you. Stop getting in my head.
So, some people are saying in the comments, some individuals have already left. You know, I think it's a very interesting prospect to go spend some time in other countries. I've talked to my friends in England, and they say don't come here because it's not that great here. You know, things are not as good here. So one of the things I've always told Greg, you know, I would love to have a slushy fruit shack on, you know, somewhere in Bali, you know, go surfing during the day and have a great tan, you know, why not? He seems a little, you know, anti that just yet, but maybe this will push him into a different direction.
Guys, it's been an interesting look and it's been an interesting day. And obviously, over the next several months, we're going to dive a little deeper into this as information comes out. But I'm glad we were able to jump into this at the time that we were able to do it, as the news broke and as the jury laid it down. 34 counts for 45, guilty on all charges. This is just the beginning of what I think is going to be a long process. We'll reconvene next week. We apologize for Rick not being able to be here, but Rick will join us on our regular podcast. Remember, it is every Thursday, 1:15 Eastern Standard Time. It is 10:15 Pacific. It's 6:15 London time. Look for Thor and Annabelle during the week with other little vignettes, we'll say, on topics that are coming up during the week. And please follow the social medias. Until next time, when there's breaking news, we're on it. That's what we do. And we will see you in the future. Take care.